Madame la Présidente, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would like to reiterate what a delight it is to be here in. And I'll now switch to English. Thank you.
Wondered if we would have a full-fledged, full steam ahead French session. I regret to disappoint you. So it's a great pleasure to be back in Brussels and to be in this new space, actually, which is old space, but yeah, sometimes, there's nothing wrong with being old, if I may say. So since we last met, this was in 2024, a long time ago, the new US administration has taken office and embarked on a new course in both domestic and foreign policy. And this has, as you've indicated, Madam President, far-reaching implications for the global economic and political landscape, and it forces Europe to address both long-standing and new challenges in trade, in economic competitiveness, and in defence. And it is clear that the world is not waiting for us. But the good news is that we will not wait for the world. In this context, your chosen topic of trade policies is relevant and very timely. But before we discuss this topic in details, because I'm sure you will have questions about this item, I would like to start by updating you on the euro area economic outlook and the ECB monetary policy stance that you reminded us of. So if we look at the euro area economic outlook, it is based on latest projections that have been aggregated within the euro system and that we published in the last 2 weeks. In 2024, the euro area economy recovered despite many headwinds. Euro area GDP grew by 0.9% on average, which is about twice as much as it did in 2023. Growth slowed in the fourth quarter of 2024, and the first month of this year have seen a continuation of many of last year's underlying patterns. Manufacturing is still contracting, although survey indicators are improving. High domestic and global policy uncertainty is holding back investment, and competitiveness challenges are weighing on exports. But at the same time, services remain resilient. In addition, rising household incomes and a robust labour market still are supporting a gradual pickup in consumption that we have seen in the latest data that we collected. Heightened uncertainty is likely to dampen investment and exports more than previously anticipated, but growth is expected to be supported by higher incomes and lower borrowing costs, as you've just indicated. Additionally, exports should benefit from rising global demand, but this, of course, remains contingent upon the developments in international trade policies. The latest ECB staff projections expect the economy to grow by 0.9% in 25, so same as in 24, 1.2 in 26, and 1.3 in 27. And you have in the 2 pages that has been made available to you in the left-hand column the indication of that growth projection and the distribution amongst the drivers of growth. These estimates are subject to considerable uncertainty, also owing to the trade policy environment, which we will discuss and which you have heard about and read about in the last few days. So looking now at price developments, the disinflation process is well on track. Headline inflation decreased from 2.5% in January to 2.3% in February, mainly on account of a drop in energy inflation. Core inflation, taking out energy and food, also declined slightly from 2.7% in January down to 2.6% in February, reflecting lower services inflation. That's important. Domestic inflation edged down in February but remains high as wages and services prices in certain sectors are still adjusting to past inflation surges. They are the ones that I call the late comers. Nominal wage growth moderated over the course of 24, and it is expected to continue decelerating in the coming months as real wages have caught up with levels seen before the surge in inflation, leading to fewer demands for inflation compensation. And again, you have a good indication of that in the 2 pages that you have available with the ECB wage tracker, which indicates where it's coming back. So let me now turn to, well, before I turn to our monetary policy stance, let me also give you the forecast that we have for inflation. So we expect inflation, headline inflation, to average at 2.3% in 25, 1.9% in 26, and 2% in 2027. You will remember that our target is 2% medium-term sustainable. So earlier this month, 2 weeks ago exactly, we lowered our key interest rates by another 25 basis points. Inflation is developing broadly as expected in our baseline. Most measures of underlying inflation suggesting that inflation will settle at around our 2% medium-term target on a sustained basis. The deposit facility rate now stands at 2.5%, which is 150 basis points below the highest level that we had at 4%. Our monetary policy is becoming meaningfully less restrictive, and new borrowing is becoming less expensive for both firms, corporate, and households, while loan growth is picking up. So rates coming down, volume of growth of loans picking up. At the same time, past interest rate hikes are still being transmitted to the stock of loans, and lending remains subdued overall. We are determined to ensure that inflation stabilizes sustainably at our 2% medium-term target, especially in current conditions of rising uncertainty. We will follow a data-dependent and meeting-by-meeting approach to determining the appropriate monetary policy stance, and we are not committing to any particular rate path. So let me now turn to the second topic, the one that you've identified as your topic of particular interest, which is the impact of the shift in US trade policies on the euro area. The new US administration is changing direction in several policy areas, with trade being a focal point. As a result, uncertainty about the future path of trade policy has soared to exceptionally high levels. Now you have an interesting chart on the back of the 2 pages, which is this one in the left-hand corner, which gives you the trade policy uncertainty index. And it's really worth having a look at, comparing in particular with the uncertainty that we had during COVID, for instance, and what we're experiencing and the speed at which it has developed over the last few, not months, but weeks. So in our increased trade frictions are detrimental to global growth and welfare. They raise costs, they disrupt production, and they often lead to an adjustment of supply chain. This also encourages tit-for-tat retaliatory policies, further undermining the benefits of free trade. The euro area, which is very open to trade and deeply integrated into global supply chains, especially with the United States, is particularly exposed to shifts in trade policy changes. As regards the impact of specific trade measures, the situation is, of course, evolving almost on a daily basis. As a result of that, any estimate that we give is subject to maximum uncertainty. Our analysis, I was going to say at this point in time, suggests that a US tariff of 25% on imports from Europe to the United States would lower euro area growth by about 0.3 percentage point in the first year. A European response in the form of raising tariffs on US imports would further increase this to about 0.5 percentage point. The brunt of the impact on economic growth would concentrate around the first year after the rise in tariffs. Leaving a persistent negative effect on the level of output. In such a case, the inflation outlook would become significantly more uncertain. In the near term, EU retaliatory measures and a weaker euro exchange rate, resulting from lower US demand addressed to Europe for European products, could lift inflation by around 0.5 percentage point. The effect would ease in the medium term due to lower economic activity, dampening inflationary pressures. But let me again stress that these estimates are subject to very high uncertainty, given that the impact of tariff increases may be non-linear, for instance, due to a significant reconfiguration of global supply chains. Now, of course, the high level of policy uncertainty requires us to remain vigilant and ready to act to protect price stability. Crucially, the answer to the current shift in US trade policies should be more, not less, trade integration, both with trade partners around the globe, but also within the European Union. Trade integration, including free trade agreements, has been a driver of economic prosperity and can protect against unilateral trade measures. In fact, let me mention some ECB analysis that we have conducted recently. It indicates that closer integration with the rest of the world, so that means excluding the United States, could more than offset the losses incurred from unilateral tariffs, including retaliation. So the consequences that I have mentioned as a result of the tariffs and the retaliations could actually be offset by this further and deeper integration with the rest of the world. So it is important that the EU remains open to trade and swiftly finalising recent trade agreements with other international partners, because that would be also a powerful signal. We must also use these developments as a catalyst for deepening trade between European Union member states. The single market is estimated to have added between 12 and 22% to long-run EU GDP in its first 30 years. And the level of trade between member states has doubled since its integration. A deeper single market is crucial for reducing trade barriers within Europe and creating the scale so necessary for firms to thrive. In addition, the more we exploit our own market, the more resilient Europe is to the impact of global fragmentation and external shocks more generally. With this competitiveness compass, the European Commission has put forward a concrete roadmap that should be urgently implemented. In this context, the plan for the Savings and Investment Union presented yesterday is another crucial step. By enhancing our strategic autonomy and increasing our economic clout, Europe negotiates with trade partners from a position of greater strength that can only be harnessed and benefited from collectively. At the ECB, we will continue to carefully monitor global trade developments and take their impact into account in our monetary policy deliberations. In the current environment, it is important that we anticipate and assess implications of the potential trade policy changes. Careful analysis and communication are key, and we are exploring both aspects further as part of our ongoing strategy assessment. To conclude, in today's turbulent environment, only a united Europe is a stronger Europe. Can't resist quoting Jean Monnet, who said once, well, I'll actually amend his quote. He said, make men, and I will amend to add women as well, work together, show them that beyond their differences and geographical boundaries, there lies a common interest. Paul Valéry said something very similar to that, which was beautiful as well, but I'll spare you the quote. This common interest is the prosperity of people in the EU. To achieve it, we must continue to uphold free trade and we must strengthen our union. The single market enables this, as it can contain the impact of global trade fragmentation. Let us continue to strengthen this precious tool and forge our own destiny in the interest of all Europeans. So I thank you very much for your attention and I look forward to your questions.
Merci, Madame.